Okay, so this is just going to be a short tutorial on using Reality Scan to process scans from our photogrammetry suite at Sheffield Hallam. We have 144 cameras in a cylindrical configuration in a room in the Strines building, level 2. And the idea of this is that it can capture a full body person in one shot. Reality Scan is the software that is used to process these scans and turn them into a 3D model. So let's have a look at doing that. This is Reality Scan here. You can get this for free from the Epic Game Store. So if we just nip over to the internet here and Epic Game Store up here, you'll find a download button in the top right hand corner that will download the Epic Game Store app. Once you've downloaded the Epic Game Store app, you will open it up like this. And you will find Reality Scan if you come down to the Unreal Engine option here. And you'll find Unreal Engine, you'll find Twinmotion, you'll find Reality Scan, and this is the one that we're currently running now. So you'll be able to install that and launch it from inside here. Once installed, Reality Scan looks like this, and it will open up with an empty scene. Reality Scan comes with a variety of view modes. So at the moment we're in a 3D workspace. You can switch to 2D, you can switch to 1D, you can switch to a map view. There's a couple of options inside here, but we're just going to be bothered about sticking to a 3D view here. So once you've got your scan from the photogrammetry suite, we'll probably typically be providing you with a folder of images, a bunch of JPEGs that have come straight out of our scanner. So I'll just load one of these up now. So you'll get a folder like this that's just full of different images of your scan. So I'm just going to select the folder here, and that will import all 144 images on the left here, so you'll be able to see them here. If I double click on one of these, you'll see it opens up a 2D view up here, and you can see some of the images that have been captured from the system. So just scanning through here, making sure that none of them are out of focus. And they're all relevant images. You don't have any pure black ones. Any that you don't like, that you don't want to process, you can press this X button and it will delete them, or you can disable them. And once you've got them into the program, I'm just going to make this a little bit wider here, and we can start to process. So the first step in the workflow is to align the cameras. So what this means is that the Reality Scan is going to look through all of the images that you've imported. It's going to try and find similar points on all of the images and figure out where the cameras were in the room at the time of the capture. So for example, on this shirt, it might see a point here and it'll find that on another camera, and it'll find that on another camera. And with the combination of different angles that it's seen, it will figure out where the cameras were in 3D space, so that we can create a high resolution 3D model from the data. So with the images imported, I'm just going to come over to the workflow tab. I'm going to keep this very simple and just kind of stick to the simple things that we can do in here, just to get you off the ground. So we've imported a folder. The next step, we're going to go to alignment, and we're going to align images. So let's let that process now. Okay, so it's finished aligning the cameras. I'm just going to go over the navigation of this 3D viewport. So if you hold the right mouse button down and move around, you will start to rotate. If you scroll, you will zoom in and out. If you hold the left button down, you can move forwards, backwards, left and right. And if you hold the left and right mouse button together, you can pan on the axis that you're currently at. So you can see we spat out a very basic scan with point cloud data here. If you want to rotate around a specific point in 3D space, you can double click and it will put in a little axis. And now when you hold right click to rotate, it's rotating around that point that stays in the middle. So we can double click down here and we can rotate about this, and we can zoom into wherever your mouse is pointing is where you will be zooming in and out. Okay, so left and right click to pan up a little bit, and I'm just going to zoom out. So having a look at what it's actually seen here, we can see all of these cameras around the side. So this has actually done quite a good job figuring out where all the cameras are in the room. If we go over to the view mode over here, I can increase the camera scale and you can see what's actually happening here. So this is previews from all of the different cameras showing you exactly what it thinks, where it thinks that camera is in 3D space. So you can kind of see a rough idea of where it thinks that that camera is around there, pointing from that direction. It thinks this one was here, and it usually nails it absolutely fine. You can see a box around the scan. What we don't want to do is process the entire room. Now we've got this rough point cloud in here. We want to tell Reality Capture exactly what we want to keep and what we don't. So we're not interested in anything apart from the subject in the middle here. So what I'm going to do is just go over to Mesh Model, and you can press Set Reconstruction Region here. And all that does is enable these controls if they weren't enabled for you. So there's a little box in the middle, and we want to drag this box so it's just the size of the scan that we're interested in, of the area that we want to keep. So I'm just roughly putting this around anything that we might want to keep here. I'm going to rotate down and have a look from this side. I'm just going to go back into view here and make those cameras a little bit smaller. We don't need those anymore. Okay, so we can kind of see that's probably a good area to keep. Maybe I'll put the head down a little bit there, so it might have a couple of bits of errors up here. You can see a couple of extra bits that probably aren't necessary. Okay, so I think that'll probably be fine just to have a look at the preview. So the next step, if we go to the Mesh Model tab here, and we'll create an actual 3D model now. So there are 3 buttons here for creating different detail levels. You've got Preview, Normal, and High. I wouldn't recommend going into high detail because it spits out an incredibly high mesh, which can be quite hard for your computer to view in real time. So I would stick to either preview or normal detail. So preview will calculate a very, very rough 3D model of the scan very quickly. So let's click on that now. Okay, there we go. It only took 8 seconds, and we have a very rough, low poly version of our scan, and we're just checking for any errors that might pop up for turning this into a high resolution scan. It's done a very good job. I'm not seeing any holes. I'm not seeing any fingers meshed together or anything like that. So I'd say we're good to carry on. You can see how many polygons this is by going over to the component. And this is where all of your models, as you work through this, will appear. So this low resolution mesh is 736,000 triangles, and we're going to bump that up significantly now and process the high quality detail version of the mesh. If at this point you wanted to change the reconstruction region, you could come and do that. You might have accidentally clipped someone's hands off, or their feet might not be quite, you might have put the box through the feet, or you might have chopped a bit of their head off, and you might need to make this a little bit bigger or smaller. Now's the time to do that before you process the high resolution one. Okay, I just pressed Ctrl Z there to undo because I moved it by accident. Okay, so I'm now going to press normal detail to create the high resolution model. So let's click that. Okay, so it's processed the mesh. It's got a lot more polygons, much more high resolution. We can zoom right in here and we can start to see some surface detail on the t-shirt. You'll probably see some of the logos that were at the front. If we have a look back at this this pattern back here, it might have picked up some of this. Yeah, but you can kind of sort of see some of this symbols that were on the t-shirt. So yeah, much more high resolution than the preview scan that we scanned a minute ago. Reality Scan is a non-destructive program, so once you've created a new model of something, it actually has the history of all the things you've done on the side here. So Model 1 was our original scan with a preview mode, so if I click on Model 1, you can actually jump back to that model. And then if we go back to Model 2, which is the high resolution one, you can see the difference here if I kind of click between them. So this one is 732,000 polys, and this one is 18 million. So quite a difference here. But obviously there's a lot more detail in the texture of things. We can see hands might need cleaning up a little bit in a different modeling application, depending on what you're going to do with the data from the scan. We can see we've got some problems down here with some little bits of floating polygons. We struggle in our photogrammetry suite with the very top of the head. There's usually problems up here. So depending if you have hair, if you're wearing a hairnet, you might have problems at the top here, but usually for 3D assets like this, you would be looking at recreating the hair in a third-party tool anyway, if you were using it in a games engine or a film, or you were planning on animating it, you'd probably be replacing the hair anyway. You might just be interested in the face. But let's have a look at cleaning up some of this before we continue. So just to keep hold of the stuff that we want, let's go up to Tools. So there's a couple of Tools buttons up here. One of them is here. So there's a lasso selection here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of click, left click, and drag around here. So that's kind of made these bits orange, so we want to get rid of them. The way you do that is a little bit counterintuitive. It's called Filter Selection rather than Delete. So if I press Filter Selection here, it's removed those polygons. It's created a new model. You can see if it's got a history mode in here, so I have a look at the original model here. I can go to the one where I've deleted that, and you can see it's kind of disappeared there. So we'll just carry on and do that with any of these other floating bits that we don't want. Perhaps we don't want this bit here, so I'm just going to highlight a little bit here, and I'm going to press Filter Selection again. And you'll see it's created another version with that bit gone, and that's disappeared in the viewport there. So that's removing things using the lasso tool and filtering selection. So if you wanted to select multiple things, we could, supposing you were interested in removing this guy's head, you could just select. Well, let's have a look at. Instead of lasso, we could maybe go for a rectangle. So we could just kind of select a rectangle around his head, like so. We can filter that. Supposing you wanted to select multiple parts, if you hold Control as you select things, we could maybe get rid of his hands as well. So if we would just drag a box around his hand there while I'm holding Control and letting go, you can see both of these are selected, and I can filter selection like that. And we've removed the head and the hand, so depending on what you want to keep. I'm not going to bother with that, so I'm going to go back to the previous one. I'm going to delete the most recent, so I'm just going to press Delete there. And you see you get a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then goodbye, there it's gone. Okay, so I'll just carry on and just get rid of these floating points at the top with the lasso tool. Draw around all of these. Hold Control, add this, add these. Let's move down and have a look at any of the bits we want to remove. So holding Control and removing this, and this. And anything that's not part of the mesh. These bits will probably be tidied up in a program like ZBrush or something, a post-processing tool like Blender or anything, depending on what you're going to do with it. But I'm just looking at the moment just to delete anything that's obviously not something that we want to keep in the scan. So let's remove this by holding Control and selecting all of these as well. And just any bits that we don't want. So this bit down here, let's hold Control and all of this. So we've got a fair amount there, so I'll just filter selection there, get rid of all of those. This one down here I've just missed. Another floating one up here. If you ever get like this and you're stuck, you don't know where to go, if you press F on the keyboard, it will get you back to the middle of wherever you previously selected. So you can if you get lost, you can press F to recenter your view back to wherever you'd selected previously. So I'm going to keep all of this because that could be smoothed down in a program like ZBrush or a Blender later on. So I'm not going to bother too much about anything that's connected to the mesh itself. I'm just looking for any floating bits that we definitely don't want. So there's one there. And I might tidy up underneath his shoes as well. All of this. And all of this. And finally filter selection. One tiny little bit there. Just being perfectionist here. Okay, let's filter that. Okay, so let's say we're fairly happy with that. The next step in the process is to texture your model. So at the moment we're just looking at, let's have a look at the different view modes here. We're looking at a solid view. We can have a look at the individual vertices if we want by clicking on vertices. and where you can actually see individual points in here. Kind of shows you how many of these little vertexes you've got. Zooming back out. So we're going to texture this solid model now by going over to the Mesh Model tab and pressing well, you can either colorize, which will just color in each individual polygon, or you can texture it, which will project textures from all of these cameras onto the model itself, giving you a much more high resolution texture and something much more realistic. Okay, to show you the difference between the different coloring modes, so the difference between actually applying a texture and just looking at the raw data. If we switch back to our original preview scan, and we just have a look at, because it's a lot easier to see on a low res model. If I just colorize this one by pressing Colorize, that's processed, and you can see if I zoom into like an individual, these individual triangles, you can see it's just put like a black color there, a skin tone there, a black color there, skin tone there. It's very low resolution. It is pure just color data for each vertex of the model. Whereas if I texturize this, it will take the picture from this camera, from all the cameras, and it will project it onto the mesh, and you'll be able to see the difference in detail you can get purely from a texture map. So I'll just press texture here on this model. So it's done that now, and you can see the difference between the colorized model that we just saw and the textured model. So this is a lot nicer. It's actually projected, you know, detailed color data onto the low res 3D model, and it looks a lot more detailed than the model actually is. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of, the difference between texturize and colorize. Okay, so now I'm going to nip back to the high resolution model that's been texturized and colorized, and we're seeing the high resolution suite view here. So that's we're seeing it textured. Now, supposing you don't want this to be as large as it is, so we've got 18 million triangles here. Supposing you're putting this into a game and putting it into Blender or something, and you have a polygon count in mind, we can have a look at simplifying this high resolution model into something simpler. So let's go to Tools up here, and there's a Simplify tool, this one here. So if I press Simplify, you'll see it loads up in this little this bottom window down here. And we can see we've got a target triangle count here. So you can type in whatever you're interested in here. So I can say maybe, let's just go 30,000, nice and low, and press simplify. So that will process this high resolution model that's been textured, and it will simplify it into a 30,000 polygon model. And there we go. So I'm gonna, because it's not textured anymore, if you make changes to the underlying mesh of a 3D model, the UVs will be changed so that you would have to reproject the textures onto it. But we'll go over that in a second. So this has created a new model that's 30,000 triangles, and you can compare that to the high resolution one there, if you can click between them. So there's the high resolution one, and there's the 30,000 one that we've created. I'm just going to turn off the texture detail here by going to solid view, just so we can have a look at the underlying model. So that's going to be a lot more useful for sticking into games engines or working with to sculpt or to animate. You would probably want to retopologize this yourself if you were going to use it for film or media or games, if you were planning to move any of the parts, because you would need a much more defined topology of the parts here, but this kind of shows you the process. So we've got the low resolution model here, and we can retexture that by just going back up and using the same tool that we did before in Mesh Model, Texturize, and that will project all of the camera data back onto this lower res version of the model. If you had created your own topology, if you'd taken it out into another program, and you'd created your own low resolution model, you can bring this back into Reality Scan. And as long as it's roughly in the same place, you can project the textures back onto however you've changed it. Okay, so it's finished projecting those textures, and now we have our 30,000 polygon model, retextured with the images from the cameras. Okay, let's talk about exporting this now. So once you're happy and you've got your mesh that's the amount of polygons that you're after, all you have to do is make sure that you've got the one that you're interested in selected. We can go to workflow and we can go over to export. This will open up a window of all the different type file formats that you can export as. The most recently used ones at the top here, so I'm typically sticking to OBJs or GLBs at the moment. You can scroll through and have a look at what's available down here. You've got STLs for 3D printing, GLBs, FBXs if you're doing animation stuff or game stuff. So let's just select one of these. So I'm going to go for an OBJ. Ask it where you want, put it wherever you want. So I'm just going to go into here. I've already created an export folder, so I'll just call this number 3. In fact, let's create a new folder here. So and press save. You'll get a window here saying, do you want to export the textures? Do you want to export the vertex colors? Do you want to export the cameras? Do you want to export, X, Y, and Z? So just have a look through this and turn off anything that you don't want. So I definitely want to keep the textures. So that will create a PNG. You can change the file formats here. So if you're just after JPEGs, you can nip down here and just say I want a JPEG instead of a PNG. I'm going to keep it as PNG for now though. You can export the cameras, so that's all of these in the scene. If you set this to yes, it will bring out 144 cameras in the scene of where they were, but I've set that to no so that we don't get those. And I'm happy with how this is done. Scene transformation, you can change X, Y, and Z if you want to shift where it is being exported to. And there are coordinate systems that you can pick in here for various programs. So if you were using Blender or 3D Studio Max or Maya, you can pick that, and that makes sure that the X, Y, and Z axis are the same way around as that program. When you're happy, let's just press OK. Okay, and that's exported. So let's just open that up, and you can see it's given me a OBJ, which is about 3 megabytes for the 30,000 polygons. And we've got a texture file that fits on top of that, like this. Again, you would probably be using external tools like ZBrush or Blender or 3D Studio Max or whatever to do retopology and project your textures properly. But that's how you use a reality scan in a nutshell.